What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassidy. Welcome to the Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares to set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with and others who survived their own nightmare. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that'll help you knock down some of the prisons you built up in your own mind. All right. Welcome back, Nightmare Success In and Out listeners. This is where you come for what happens when your worst fear becomes your reality. How do you adapt, survive, overcome, set yourself free? Hey, folks, don't forget to subscribe and follow and share and all that good stuff. It helps the show. Okay, so I've got one of those stories that, takes your breath away, I think. And I was just telling my guest, Duane Williams, that I think it's everybody's worst nightmare, because what happened to Dwayne is something he didn't do, and it changed his whole life. And I'm gonna lead you through what I just took out in the Metro Times, and I thought their lead-in was good, just to take you through a nightmare that happened to somebody in their home. He woke up craving a smoke. It was about 2 a.m., March 5th, 2013, when Dwayne Williams opened his eyes to the darkness of the home he shared with his wife and family. In his grogginess, he grabbed a cigarette, then searched for a lighter, but never found one. Out of fatigue and frustration, he decided to go back to sleep. Next thing he knew, he heard a bunch of people in the house calling his name. He was pretty sure the voices belonged to police, but he didn't know why. They were there. Hearing officers walk in one direction, then another, he soon saw all the guns on him. His wife, Kathy, stirred awake, barely comprehending what in the world was going on behind the sight of deadly weapons. Williams says that he surrendered politely, asking the officers to take him from the house, hoping to keep Kathy out of harm's way. At that moment, Dwayne Williams had no idea what was going on in his life. It was getting ready to change his whole life. He gets handcuffed, he gets taken out, there's barricades, there's everything. So as it all goes, this is a Michigan story, and I've had people on here that it's called the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office Integrity Unit, and I think they've freed over like 35, 36 people, and I could be wrong on that, but that's the last number I know. And the reason why they started that unit is because they had a bunch of problem cases that they wanted to go back and look at with old investigators, attorneys, and just more or less reinvestigate these cases to see if they'd made mistakes. And out of those, there was 34, 35, 36 people have been freed. Dwayne Williams is one of those people. And with the help of the Integrity Unit, the Cooley Innocence Project, clemency investigations, the State Appellate Defender's Office, he got freed in June. He's still standing on the fact that, his case he's out, but he's still having to sit on the fact that the prosecutors could try to retry him. And he's going to find out. He was supposed to find out today. He has another hearing September 16th, but the case, what's interesting about this case is because there's always like a common thread that runs through it. And, what the evidence that was used to convict Dwayne featured the all too common things that happen in wrongful convictions, like an unreliable jailhouse informant. Those are never, there's so many times that's just never a good thing. Also, this jailhouse informant ends up to lessen the pain of his sentence. He gets paid $5,000 as this all comes about. There was evidence that wasn't given over to the defense, and this is one of those topics that we always talk about. There should be something where all the evidence is open, where everybody can review everything that everybody has, not that you rely on one side to give the other side what they have, because there's just too much that can happen in that. And so many times when you have these wrongful convictions, that is what happens. The right information doesn't get over into the right hands. It gets held back. and the other thing is the medical examiner said this was an accident, that this was somebody that was smoking on a couch sofa and it caught fire. And then that person changed his testimony after they talked to the prosecutors. And there's just time after time, there are things that happened in this that make for a wrongful conviction. I can't wait to jump into all this and talk to Duane Williams about this. Before we do, I want to recognize our show sponsor, Auto Plaza Direct. Who likes spending a couple of weekends walking car lots looking for a car. Then you spend 4 or 5 hours in the dealership to buy a car. It's kind of like a root canal appointment. Well, there's a better way to take away all that pain and hassle of getting a car. It's called Auto Plaza Direct. They're your personal car concierge. Just tell them the car you want, what you can pay, and they'll go find that car for you. They'll negotiate your best price. They also offer you warranties and financing. It's all full service. Go to autoplazadirect.com to get started with your personal car concierge, the new hassle-free way, the car buying experience you deserve. Auto Plaza Direct. Tell them Brent from Nightmare Success sent you. Duane Williams, man, have you been on a journey lately? You got released. What was the date in June you got released?
June 18th.
June 18th. So we're really only talking about weeks, really.
Yeah. It hasn't been
long. And you were in for 11 years. Is that correct?
Yeah. If you count county jail time, I was in.
I would count county jail time because that's one of the worst time.
That's right. So that puts me at 12 years, 3 months.
Wow. What a ride. What a ride. Well, I wanted to kind of lead up to this moment, but take us back a little bit, Dwayne. What was how in your world growing up? What was your life growing up as a kid?
Growing up, I mean, I grew up in Detroit. I don't know if that's, I'll explain what that means. I mean, it means that it's kind of a rough city to some degree. A lot of times, even when you're younger, you start to I guess when I was younger, stealing cars, but more so, selling drugs and things like that. Just typical urban, I guess it's typical, urban living. And, I mean, I never
don't you think, Dwayne? I mean, I've talked to a lot of guys that are in that world, that neighborhood. I think from what I've understood about growing up in that world as a young kid, you're impressionable. You see people that you admire, and those people who you admire, the older kids, they're doing things, and you kind of get into the same things that they're doing because that's kind of what the cool older kids are doing. And actually you don't know much different because that is your neighborhood. That is your block. That is your world. And I think that's part of, what do you know as like at your age, when did you start seeing things that you thought maybe might not be the right things?
I mean, maybe, I don't know, when I could really recognize maybe 5 or 6. But and then too, you got to throw in the fact that when you seeing all that stuff, you don't really know what to do. But then again, too, some of that stuff might put a little bit of money in your pocket, so that even pushes you further in that direction.
Yeah.
So,
siblings, mom, dad, what was that like?
I grew up. I lived with my grandmother. My father wasn't really around. My mother, she kind of has a drinking problem. So I didn't live, no siblings were there because I was just with my grandparents. But they tried to do it. Well, not tried to. They did a lot for me, raised me right. Unfortunately, I guess I just kind of went in the wrong direction. But I think too, it might have had something to do with the fact that some of the things that were going on with my mother and father not being there. So I probably had a lot of stuff built in. They tried to do the right thing and raise me right, but I think that because being a kid, not knowing how to handle those feelings or whatever, maybe, get in trouble.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could definitely see that. I mean, if you got mom and dad and you don't have a normal relationship with mom and dad, there's all kinds of feelings that go into that as a kid. I mean, kid doesn't know anything except, hey, mom and dad's not around,
Exactly.
How do I figure that out? I mean, you don't know how to figure it out. You just deal with it. So what was your school life like? Did you have like a normal like grade school, high school? Did you drop out? And what happened in that world?
So I think up until about the sixth, seventh grade, I got good grades.
Yeah,
Yeah, around the eighth grade, this is when I kind of started hanging with the wrong crowd. But of course, I finished the eighth grade. So I went to ninth grade for a while, but then started doing other things, and that was that. But now I got to say this though. If I talk about the past and it was bad, now I got some college. I was just before I left prison was enrolled in the Calvin College program. So
yeah,
even though it started off bad, it's ending good.
yeah. That's good.
Excuse
I
me.
mean, that's good. You can find that too. Um, and I read, Dwayne, that you kind of got into rapping. Was that in like your teenage years? Like when did all that happen?
Well, I guess the
Or were you
thing
always
always
doing it?
there you go. That's what I was about to say. The thing with that is that God gave me a talent. So even when I was young, I would write poems and like
Uh-huh.
poetry. And so then all of a sudden I learned that I could rap. And from the time I was 13 till I guess you could say now, even though I don't do a lot of rapping now, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a talent that God gave me. So I realized that I could do it kind of young. I started like really trying to do it, like writing songs together. I actually recorded the first thing I ever recorded. I was either 13 or 14. I was in a boys' home, and one of the staff members there did music. He brought I don't even. I guess you would call it some type of studio. Way back then, it was totally different than what you would need now. But anyway,
Yeah.
he brought that in, and I recorded the song. And then over the years, I kind of would be in and out of the music thing, meet a few people, and eventually, what ended up happening was uh, I connected with a manager, and through some of his business dealings, I ended up starting to do shows all over America. Uh,
I saw
doing
that.
songs, yep, doing songs with people like Lupe Fiasco,
Yeah.
Swift from D12, and then
You were
eventually T
Diablo,
Pain.
right?
That's right. That's right. And
Yeah.
eventually, T Pain's brother started to help manage me. So,
Okay.
so things,
What's
things.
that? For those who don't know, what is that like out there? Like, what is that? Getting into that world, the rap world, the music world. What's that like as a younger guy?
It's 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 kind of wild, really.
Yeah,
Uh, like the one thing, man. I got a water over there. Sorry about that.
that's all right.
Yeah, I don't know what I did with it. Oh, I got it. But I think it's kind of wild. And the one thing that I can always understand now, I can understand when you hear about an entertainer like passing out on the stage because
Yeah,
they ain't haven't ate or slept. It's kind of
yeah,
like just a party. You go to one city, and when you get to that city, everybody wants to smoke with you, drink with you. Not necessarily. Well, yeah, me too. But everybody
yeah.
want to smoke with you, drink with you. Then you go to do the performance. Then it's an after party, and by the time you leave that city, you haven't really slept. Then you get to the next city and it start over again. So it used to be times where I would just forget to eat. So I understand when somebody passes out or something, it's just so hectic and so much
Yeah,
partying.
they haven't eaten, they haven't slept, and they just
Right, exactly,
collapse. Yeah,
exactly. Mm. So the answer is wild, but
that
fun.
it's that sounds wild and fun.
Yeah,
So,
it
so you were kind of in and out of that. You were
right.
kind of in and out of that. So, uh, would that lead you through the time you're in your 20s?
Well,
Was that so? Yeah.
well, actually, and then when, believe it or not, when things started taking off for me, I was a little older, and one of the problems that I had was I was on parole, and you couldn't leave. I can't leave the state, of course. But I had
I
to leave the
read
state to
this.
make. Yeah, I had to leave the state to make money. So I never committed any crime. I had to violate parole only to make money. I never could leave. I mean, I never committed a crime. Never did anything wrong. Never around any criminals. Being a upstanding citizen, except for I can't make my money unless I leave. So I eventually, of course, like always, they caught me.
How
So
did how did that happen, Dwayne? Like, so let's say you had a gig. You went to Oklahoma, or you went wherever you went.
okay,
You went to do your job. Um, I'm assuming you weren't like on a ankle monitor.
no, no.
I'm just assuming that. How did they track that down? I'm always curious about like how did they know that you were out of state
Well, well,
to
actually,
violate you?
yeah. Actually, they didn't know what happened. But all they with the violation was basically because I stopped reporting and never came back. They didn't
Gotcha.
really have any idea where I was. But it was funny because I had just got back from, I think, Colorado. I was about to go to Florida, and I remember I was happy because I had my first California show. I was doing a all-star game for some sponsors. Uh, yeah, celebrity all star game. That's what it
Okay.
was. I was performing. So my first show in California, I stopped somewhere, not doing nothing wrong, to
Big
get some.
break.
Right. And the police pull up, and my manager had like 25, 30,000. The problem is we in some projects in the city close to Detroit. But I'm just stopping there to pick up a shirt that I didn't even really need. But make a long story short, the police pull up. My manager got like 25,000 cash in his pocket. So now this is a problem. And now they want to know my name too. And so that was that.
There it
Once I
was.
found my name, it was all over with. So, yeah.
Wow. So how long did you have to go in with the violation?
Well, I went in. Luckily, I only did 7 months. But when I
Okay.
got out, I, uh, I decided that instead of running, I was going to try to do it the right way. So I went to my parole officer, let him know what I do, had some people come in, meet with them. The MDLC gave me permission to do shows, but my parole officer had to approve it. When I had a parole officer who didn't like me, never approved anything. So basically, for 2 years, I couldn't do shows, which like killed
So
it.
he basically shut down your business.
Exactly. Killed,
Yeah.
killed, killed everything I was doing as far as like the way I would make my money. And I just got off of that parole like right before this happened. Right before the
Yeah.
incident.
That's what I read. I mean, the timing of all this is crazy. That's what it looked like. You had gotten off parole, you're doing your thing, taking the kids to school, kind of living the dad married life, and boom. So
Boom.
walk us through the nightmare, Dwayne. How in the world is what? I mean, I read a little bit about this. But tell me what was going through your mind when this happened. They come in your house. It's the middle of the night. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. You have no idea that there's any investigation going on whatsoever. The one thing I didn't add is that the person who died in the house, I think his name was Sims. He was dating your mom. Was that the connection?
It was two people, and the other gentleman, Mr.
What
Cross, was dating my mother.
was dating your mom?
Right.
Okay, so there was a connection of just that. Of if they were trying to make any connection whatsoever, you were connected because your mom was dating someone that was in that house.
Right.
But an investigation had been going on for about a year. That happened about a year before they invaded your house, correct?
Yeah, well, actually, there was no investigation going on because the fire wasn't classified as a crime and the deaths were accidents. So there was no investigation going on. 7 months, 6 months later, when Jennings comes forward and says what he says, this is what causes them. Unfortunately, the police officer that he talked to was crooked. Let's just say, I'm just gonna say that he was
Mhm.
crooked, and so this is a guy who wanted to make a case out of nothing, and he moved forward with what Jennings said, even though he knows there was no reason to.
Okay, so you get this surprise uh, invasion of the house, guns drawn, take you out of the house, take you to the police station. What happens?
Uh, I get to the police. I remember that the U.S. Marshals, that's who arrested me. I remember they wouldn't talk to me. When I got to the police station, the detective came in, and once he started asking me questions, I knew what the situation was about. So basically, I just told him the truth. I told him where I was, uh, that I didn't know anything about the fire. I wasn't there. I told him where I was. I didn't have no reason not to
Well, I
tell
think
him.
you said you were at home watching videos, movies, or something with the family or the kids or something like that. Was that what the situation was?
No, 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 no. I was kind of like in transit, going from one place to another. But
Okay.
it was people who, when I left one place, people when I got to the other place. But the problem came in that after I talked to this investigator, I asked him. I said, "So, what you think? You gonna go make sure verify my story?" And he told me no. And he meant it, I guess. When he said no, he said he meant no. And so they didn't verify my story. They didn't verify Jenny's story because, again, they were just focused on the conviction. And they had me in that room, and they was going to make it work one way or the other.
Did you ever think in that moment that maybe I shouldn't say anything and I had to ask for an attorney because these guys are coming down on me? But you felt like because they don't like that when you ask for an attorney. They want to keep you talking, and so they can get all that down. Did any of that ever happen when you were in there being interrogated?
Uh, I think I better say this, that they always say it's best not to talk to the police, and I'm gonna push that too because I believe it is best. Now, I told them the truth, and my statement didn't hurt me at all. As a matter of fact, they didn't even, like, in my trial, they didn't even show the interrogation. And
Mm-hmm.
but what that allowed to happen was for the officer to get on the stand and lie and I said a lot of inculpatory things that I never said. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I would advise people not to talk to the police, even when you're telling them the truth. Talk to your lawyer. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because you don't know,
right,
you just don't know. And especially if they're fingering you as the person, you're going to need a lot of help because, what you say, what you do might not be what you need at that moment, as far as that attorney gathering information about what they know, how they know it, when they knew it, who they knew it from, all
right,
those
right, right.
things. And you didn't know any of that at the moment that you were. So you get interrogated. Uh, what's the next step that happens to you?
Uh, the next thing, I went to the county jail. Well, actually, it's kind of funny. I'm just sitting in the precinct, and I'm waiting to leave, and I'm waiting to see what's going on.
Right.
And I remember I had been there maybe 4 days, and I remember the uniformed officers, because the homicide at this time, the Detroit police department had their homicide unit in the second precinct. So, supervisor for the regular patrol officers, he made a round through the lockup part, and I remember him making a round and looking at me and saying, "Hey, you still here?" And I told him, "Yeah, I'm still here." He said, "Well, hold on a minute, because I'm about to let." I guess the time period that he could hold me was
Was going to
past.
expire.
But actually, it
Yeah.
was no, it was already expired. Now
Already
that I know
expired.
more about the law, yeah. And he told me, "Well, I'm about to go and talk to the supervisor of homicide and find out what's going on with you, because I got to let you go." And he came
Mhm.
back with a funny look on his face, like telling me that they were going to arraign me, and they still didn't arraign me for another day. But so I get arraigned, go to the county jail, have my prelim. At my prelim, this is because up until now, I don't really know what's going on. I don't know that anybody has lied on me. At some point, I do get my discovery and his names in the discovery, but I don't know the names. So once I get to my prelim and I see this particular name that I've been seeing in the paperwork, and I see who it is, I see that it's Jennings, because I called him by a street name. I never knew his real name.
Mhm.
Well, I just couldn't believe it when I saw this guy walk up on the stand, and then even worse, to listen to him say that I told him some things that I didn't say, and
And this
not
Jennings was a guy that you knew from, was he also kind of in the rap world?
Yeah, I guess you could
Kind
say
of.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He will record music, but he in his depositions with the prosecutor in court, he made it sound like, for instance, he told them that he met me in the studio. Well, I've never been in the studio with him. I met him like if you like you yeah, obviously you saw the Metro Times, excuse me, the Metro Times article. I met him in a at a magazine release party, but
Hmm.
in a sworn statement, which again it says clearly in the transcript that if you lie, you face life in prison. And I mean, I know this might not be material, but it's just the point. He's telling them that we've been in the studio together 5 or 6 times, and I've never been in the studio with this guy. But yeah, the way that I met him was like music related through at
Yeah. Music
a magazine
related.
release party, right?
How long does it take, Dwayne, from the time that all this happens, you get arraigned, they charge you to the point where you're at a trial?
Actually, I was surprised when I got arrested. I expected to be in the county probably 2 years at least, but they got me to trial basically pretty much in 6 months. So
Wow,
it
that's
was
quick.
relatively fast. Yeah, yeah.
What was your, what kind of defense attorney did you have? Where did that come from?
Well, he was court appointed, but
Okay.
I had an aunt who was going to give me a lawyer, and she said that every time she asked around and people would ask who I had, and they told him who I had, they would say, "Well, keep him." So she came
Okay.
back to me like they saying he good, which
Okay.
well, so the problem with him was I think that he didn't listen to me.
Hmm.
Uh, it took a while to see it, but he basically wouldn't listen to me. He wouldn't talk to nobody. I really remember knowing it was a problem when he told me, "I'm not talking to anybody in your family, but these are the people you need to talk to because these are the
Absolutely.
people who can tell you what happened." And also, uh, there were 2 other people who were important, and he never would go talk to them. So I pretty much knew I was in trouble with then, you know.
Wow. That's your attorney.
You were exactly,
That's
exactly.
the guy that's defending you.
Yeah.
So you get into trial. I mean, your life is on the line. How, well, first of all, how long does the trial go?
Uh, the trial was supposed to be, the judge told the jury the trial would be 2 or 3 days. The trial
Mm.
ended up being maybe 5, 6 days over like
Okay.
2.5 weeks.
Okay.
So
5 or
it went a
6
little long.
days. And
Yeah,
what were
yeah.
you thinking while the trial was going on?
To tell you the truth, my problem was that after a while, it was so many lies being told, and I would write a question down to my attorney, and I'll push it to him, and he'll push it back. And so, at a certain point, I kind of just stopped paying attention. I'm not gonna say I wasn't paying attention, but I kind of turned my back. I wasn't facing the witnesses anymore, and I just was like,
Frustration.
well, yeah, it's nothing I can do here. These people telling lies. Nobody's challenging it. This guy isn't listening to me. The prosecutor, uh, the lies that these people are telling they fit a narrative that the prosecutor is putting forth to the courtroom, and that never happened. So really, in my mind, I'm thinking it. So now here I am sitting in a courtroom in a trial for a double murder and an arson, and the story that these people are telling never happened. So and then there's other people now who are getting up on the stand and saying things, and they're matching this narrative. And the more and more it went on, it was just like I can't. I don't know what to do. How do you challenge something? And it sounds easy, but how do you
Yeah.
challenge something that never happened?
No, you're trying to
Especially with
prove a
nobody fighting
negative.
for you.
No. And I guess, did they try to make a big deal? And I'm assuming this is probably was part of their motivation of the case is that you and the other guy, not Sims, got into some type of argument a day or two before. Was that the big thing that they tried to land on, that somehow that
Right,
was the big key that broke everything, and you just
right.
had to be the guy?
Yeah, that was part. That was part of that false narrative. Actually, the disagreement that we had was like small and silly. And
Yeah.
there was some confusion going on, but it wasn't me and him. But what the
Okay.
prosecutor did was they took that
Twisted it.
little second, right, twisted it, and then added some more stuff to it, and just came up with a story that was pretty much unbelievable to me at the time, and still is.
So everything goes through. You're frustrated as hell. Your attorney's, he's never listened to you, so he's definitely not going to listen to you in the trial room, the courtroom.
Yeah, yeah.
The jury comes back in. You stand up, and they read the verdict. What goes through your mind?
Man, I kind of, well, I'm gonna tell you, I had to go back to that moment for a minute. I remember first the jury sent out a note saying, and
Okay.
they asked for documents from the fire investigator, and the judge didn't give them to him. They went
Okay.
back in to deliberate. They sent out another note saying that they was deadlocked and couldn't reach a decision, and the judge sent them back. And when she sent them back, one of the jurors stood up and like sighed, like she was just tired of being there. So right then, I remember saying to myself, "Come on now, don't give up on me now." And
Mm-hmm.
not too long after that, they came back with the guilty verdict. So I just remember thinking that they just wanted to go home. They said they just sent a note out saying we can't make a decision. If I was a juror, and the problem with jurors is they don't know the law. So if
Mm-hmm.
I was a juror, I could see me assuming that, okay, we just said we can't make a decision. We was, because it was people on the jury who was telling the judge that, hey, look, I'm employed or I'm self-employed and I
Right.
can't do this
I got to
longer
get
than
out of
3 weeks.
here.
Right. And here we
Right.
are now
Right.
going on the third week. So I can see
Yeah.
where they just warmed down and they just didn't care, or I don't know, said forget it, because it seemed like it was the only way for them to get out of it.
So you get this verdict, and it's your life. You know, you're convicted of murder. You're taken away. It starts the whole process of. I think you went to, was it Iona prison?
Yeah. I
Right?
went to
Yeah.
Michigan Reformatory in Iona, your first place I went.
What do you, Dwayne? What goes through a guy's mind that gets drug out of bed, run through the system, and hurries up a jury trial, and nobody listens to anything you have to say about where you were, what you're doing, how you're doing it, and you get convicted for murder? What are you thinking?
I think at first I was mad. And so when I got to the reception center, I kind of was, what would be the word? I wasn't following the rules. Cause
Yeah.
I was mad. And then when I got to the reformatory, then I was kind of, I wouldn't say I guess depressed.
Yeah, I would
And
think you'd be depressed.
yeah,
I
yeah,
would be.
yeah. I spent a lot of time just sitting on my bunk and
Mm-hmm.
not doing nothing. I had bought a TV, but I never watched the TV.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, I was paying an inmate because I didn't know anything about the law. So I
Mm-hmm.
was paying an inmate to do my legal work.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I got some paperwork back, and I'm looking at what he did, and I was thinking, if this is all he did, I could have did that. But he was able to talk to me. I paid him some more money, and basically my appeal got shot down. So what I
Mm.
realized that at that
How far
moment,
along were you? How far along were you then in that process when your appeal got turned down?
well, that was it. It was the end, basically. It was the end. I was that was the Michigan Supreme Court. So I went through the regular Court of Appeal, and then we
Yeah.
moved on to the Supreme Court. That's when I paid him again. And
Okay.
once I got shot down, and I thought about what he did, reading it, I said to myself that I can stay. Well, if I have to stay in prison for the rest of my life, I can do it if I kept myself there, but I can't stay in prison and with any kind of peace if I was so stupid that I paid somebody. I mean, my comprehension level is decent, so I can
Mm-hmm.
read things, I can comprehend, I can understand. So I'm paying somebody to do what I can do myself. All I have to do is learn. So I made the decision that if I was going to stay in prison, and somebody was going to keep me there, then I would prefer it to be me doing something
You're going to
dumb.
be the guy. You're going to
That's
take it
right.
on your shoulders.
That's right.
Well, I want to start talking about how this started stepping the other way and the right way. But before we do, I want to recognize Nightmare Success Podcast is sponsored by the White Collar Support Group. It's the world's first support group devoted to people navigating the white collar criminal justice system. I'm a member of the White Collar Support Group, and I can tell you that there's a bunch of people who help each other through the criminal justice system for free. Whether you're just starting your journey or you've made it through to the other side, this is a great space for you. You can join us on Zoom Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific. For information, go to prisonist.org. That's prisonist.org. Start here. So as you're stepping through this, Dwayne, and you take it on yourself, hey, I'm going to start figuring this stuff out myself. I got to figure out, if I'm going to be in here, I'm going to educate myself. How far along were you in your sentence that you got this mindset that you were going to take this on yourself?
I think I was about it was probably right around the going toward the end of 2015, beginning of 16. So almost 3 years, a little
3
under
years.
right? Yeah. So
Okay.
I guess go ahead.
Well, I'm curious because sometimes, people get really frustrated because they reach out to people and they try to, find all different ways to get people to help them. All these different groups that came from Cooley to the integrity unit to all these, how did they find you? What was, what started that connection?
Well, first of all, I got to say that I wrote like 70,000 letters probably, but I wrote.
And you were writing letters to the Innocence Project, to all these different places to just try to get heard.
The president, the mayor, the chief of police in Detroit, state reps, state senators, any and everybody. But what happened was the first people I got in contact with was the University of Michigan Innocence Clinic, and eventually they got back with me. And what they did was they provided an expert report from me. So the U of M got the first expert report, and although they didn't keep my case, that expert report became like super valuable. So then,
and what all went into the expert report? Like for those listeners out there that don't know, what went into your expert report with Michigan?
What it showed was that the fire investigation, the methodology used wasn't proper for fire investigations. So when you look at the report, you just keep looking and just keep saying not accurate, not accurate, not accurate, not accurate. And so and I think the way to explain that was that the fire was an accident, and then when they tried to twist it, it did. Once you try to,
it didn't
you
fit.
twist it right now. Exactly now it doesn't fit the standards for the NFPA, National Fire Protection and Prevention Association. But I forgot the question.
So they turn it over to. Do they turn it over to Cooley? Is that where it goes?
Yeah.
Or who's the next? Who did they turn it over to?
Well, actually, they dropped it. They've never officially told me they turned it over to Cooley, but it was kind of a funny thing. I go to pick up legal mail. I get the letter from U of M, and I'm reading it, and I'm about to walk away, and they tell me you got another letter. And I had a letter from Cooley saying to send them everything. But now Cooley works in cooperation with the CIU, because the CIU in Wayne County, they got like now thousands of applications, and it's impossible for them to review them all. So Cooley has a grant with the CIU to review everything. So basically the CIU conducted their review, and right when they were finished, clemency investigations came into play. And basically what I wanted, how I got into, they're out of Louisville, Kentucky. Actually, Denver Butler, the head of clemency investigations, was here this morning for the hearing and just left. But what I wanted from him was he's an expert in federal and state courts in police practices. So I had my lawyer contact him to get a expert report on the practices of the law enforcement officers in my situation. And once he read and saw what happened to me, he told my attorney that he wanted to meet with me and that he would work on my case for free. And so that's exactly what he did. He paid for a polygraph, and because his background is he was a homicide detective in Louisville, Kentucky. Every now and then you'll see him on the first 48. But anyway, he was a homicide sergeant in Louisville, retired from the Louisville Police Department in the Kentucky State Legislature, helped write the manual, so to speak, or the rules dealing with police misconduct.
So he's a pro. He's an expert.
Exactly. So, and he conducted the investigation into my case with the gentleman who, the week before they started the investigation, he retired from being a federal prosecutor. And the reason this is important is because the CIU had never, like, if you can investigate a case, of course, but the CIU never cooperated. But because this was a homicide detective and a federal prosecutor, the CIU actually allowed them to conduct an investigation. And what that did was it allowed them to receive all the documents quicker. Otherwise, like say if somebody hired a private investigator or something, the private investigator has to do a Freedom of Information Act request, and they're gonna send you what they might want to send you. Well, going through the CIU, the police and the prosecutor, they can't withhold anything. The CIU can just go get it. So the CIU gave Clemency Investigations all the files. They went through them, conducted an investigation, went back to the CIU with their findings. The CIU then conducted their own investigation, and finally, in August of 23, they determined that I should be released.
Wow. So this started more or less in 15. You take on yourself that you're gonna, this whole new mindset that you're gonna start reaching out and trying to be all you can be to set yourself free. So we're really talking about, it took you roughly 8 years. And when did you start feeling like, Dwayne, that you were getting close to this was catching traction, that like you're in prison? I mean, you're getting this stuff fed back to you. Are they visiting you in prison, or is this all coming by mail and all that? Are you actually able to meet with the people in the prison?
Well, like Clemency Investigations came and met with me. They paid for somebody to come give me a polygraph exam. My lawyer from from the State Appellate Defender's Office, Maya Menlo, she came and visited me once. But Zoom, this technology now is incredible. So I had like countless Zoom meetings with her. So that was, and with the other people. So that's how most of the communication was.
When did you start thinking that you had a chance?
Let's see. I knew that, well, this is a moment that I was talking about last night. When I saw that the lines were missing in the fire report and that there was actually something there, the lighter, I knew then that something had to happen. I wasn't sure exactly how. And once I started showing people, I started, okay, now I'm going to get somewhere.
So how long did it take from the time that you thought we're going to get somewhere to they start coming back to you and saying, hey, Dwayne, I think you've got a chance that you're going to get out of here? And then how did that process work?
Okay. Well, I think, I can't remember. I think maybe it was 2020 when I found it.
Okay.
I think I started letting the lawyers know. See, the process happened so weird with me, but actually, I guess I let them know about the lighter, and once I let them know about the lighter, I think that kind of, I mean, no pun.
Well, let's talk about the lighter, because the lighter wasn't turned over to your defense team,
right?
And,
we knew that,
and that's a big deal because they had it, they had the lighter, right. and it wasn't. That's exculpatory evidence, so they didn't give it over to. It's a huge deal.
Right.
So in 2020, you start thinking that the momentum of things is coming your way, but what has to happen? What are the steps that happen? What courts do you get into to have to be in to say, hey, Dwayne, you're out, you're good? What happened?
I guess, well, what happened with me was, and again, my situation was a little bit different because I had so many people involved, but,
right.
basically what needs to happen in general in Michigan is the CIU conducts their investigation. They make a recommendation to Kim Worthy, the prosecutor. The prosecutor makes a decision whether or not you'll be released from prison or not.
Okay.
In my particular situation, that's what happened, but it was probably a few more steps added because so many people kept coming in. Clemency investigations came in. I had to take the polygraph, and so these
Mm-hmm.
were things that helped me, but it made it take more time.
Made it take more time because there were more people involved. You had
Right,
Cooley
exactly.
involved. You had the Wayne and integrity unit involved.
Right.
You had the
Sado.
clemency investigate. Yeah.
Right.
So so it's 2023. So you get before the judge in, well, this was in June, right?
Yep, June the
Yeah.
24th. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is June
So that tells
2024.
how long it took.
Yeah.
So much for what I call momentum, huh?
Yes. So, okay. So you're not at the proceeding, right? Are you in prison and then they're going on your behalf to the hearings for you? Or are you actually at the courthouse and hearing what they're saying? Or is that all just coming back to you through a phone call or through a Zoom?
Well, yeah. Once my court hearing, I was in the courtroom via Zoom. So
Okay.
I was actually there. But before that, I mean, no, it would be coming back letters, Zoom meetings. But my actual court hearing that I was released, I was there via Zoom.
Okay. So in that court hearing, because you had a bad court hearing when you got sentenced and you went to
Right.
trial. So now you're in there in a Zoom. You got some real good people on your side that are fighting for you. Could you get a feeling from the judge where this thing was going as they were arguing your case?
But actually, I did because what my lawyer was telling me was that I wasn't going to be released. She was telling me
Okay.
that the convictions were going to be vacated, go to the county jail, that the judge probably wouldn't, that basically the judge wouldn't grant bond. So I would have to go to the county jail and wait again. Well, she was going to ask for it. The judge wouldn't grant it. The prosecution wasn't going to say anything. And she was saying that the judge would want to hear from the prosecution. So what he would most likely say is to tell the prosecution, you give me a response to this motion for bail and we'll come back. So I went into the hearing thinking that I'm not getting out of jail. Now, I mean, I'm leaving prison, but I'm going to the county jail, and my convictions are vacated. But
Yeah.
once the hearing started, and I think one of the things that I probably always remember that stood out to me was I remember Valerie Newman, the head of the Wayne County Conviction Integrity Unit, telling the judge that in most cases, when she comes before the court, she puts all the misconduct on the record. But she told
Uh-huh.
him that in my particular situation, that it would be impossible to put the misconduct on all of the misconduct on the record. So as she went through the facts and explained them to the judge, I saw that he was attentive, and I just watched some of his reactions, and so I knew that they were going. He was for sure going to vacate the convictions because I knew that once the facts were explained to him, I could tell that he had a problem with the things that occurred.
Okay.
Uh, and then so once the conviction was vacated, they moved on to bond. Now remember, I'm already in my mind and I'm not getting it, but as my
What were
lawyer
your
was
thoughts when they said, what were your thoughts, Dwayne, when the judge said your convictions were vacated and you're just sitting there on Zoom? You've been sitting there 11 years.
right. It was a weight lifted off of me. I ain't gonna lie. It was a weight
Uh-huh.
lifted off of me. So it just felt I couldn't believe it after all of those years of fighting that finally it really happened.
There it
And then
was.
yeah, there it was. And then my lawyer moved on to bond, and I had two plans. One of them was to come to Detroit with my family, and the other one was to go to Grand Rapids, Michigan, because I was attending Calvin University, and they had a reentry plan set up for me. So
Okay.
when my lawyer got to the second reentry plan, the judge kind of stopped her, and he said, "Well, I want to know about this person," and the person that he was asking about was somebody related to the first reentry plan. So when he said that, I said, "Well, wait a minute." He thinking about letting me out. If he wants to know more about this person, he thinking about letting me out. And then he eventually granted me bond. And now that was something. Because like I
Mm.
said, I didn't expect it. I expected to go to the county jail. I didn't expect to be free that day. So then it was like it's
Yeah,
almost
you
like
got to
living
touch all
a dream.
bases. You hit a home run.
Right.
Okay, just so everybody knows what this means. So he grants the bond, so you get released, but you're still released to the county jail.
Right.
And I think that's when you ran into Daryl Woods,
Yeah, exactly.
who was on this show, who served 28 years in prison, and now is I think the chairman of the police commission. So he's an incredible human being. So you get out. Who all's there when you get out? Like you get out after 11 years, your conviction's vacated. You walk out of there. What happens?
Yeah, well, like I said, that everything went wrong with the whole process. So by the time I get out of the county jail, it was 10:30 at night.
Okay,
Uh, uh,
late.
well, yeah. Like I said, Daryl Woods, first person I saw. And I had never met him before, but I saw that. I remember somebody in jail who knew him. I remember
Yeah,
talking about the gold badge, and I saw the guy had a gold badge on. And he
yeah.
walked up, he asked me my name, and I told him. He told me who he was, and he just told me that he was happy that I was home, and that every see, I got it. I almost teared up for a minute. It's
I
kind of
can
hard sometimes.
imagine. No,
Yeah,
Dwayne. I can only imagine the emotions.
yeah. But it was just like to know that somebody, and then later on, I found out that he made the phone calls to make sure that I got out of the county that night. So
Mm, big deal.
anyway, yeah.
It's a big
Anyway,
deal.
yeah,
Well, let's talk about, because all this is wonderful, and I'm reading this article because I knew you had this hearing and it was today. Um, because what you've got to deal with when all this happens is if they want to retry this, and because some people get confused with double jeopardy and all these type of things, but these these guys in the same, this is what's so confusing about it. They're in the same office. The same people who freed
right,
you are the same people that on the other side are saying if they want to retry the case.
right,
And the judges vacated your conviction. You've had 3-4 of these different Innocence Project people that are in this world of yours that have gone through all the facts, exposed all the issues, and today they said they needed more time to decide. And so
right.
what you thought might end it today, where you wake up and you don't have to worry about anything. You've got till September 16th. And hopefully that date is that they see that everyone else is on this side and there's only one person on this side, and there's got to be other better things to do in life.
Yeah, today was, I guess it was unfortunate, but my attorney yesterday let me know that it was a chance that it could turn out like this. Uh, I think that I think that first of all, I know what to do. First, I'd like to thank Kim Worthy, the
Yeah.
Wayne County prosecutor, for the part she's played in me being free. I'd like to thank Valerie Newman from the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office Conviction Integrity Unit. But also, I think that the prosecutor's office uh, and the police department, people need to do the right thing. People it's about, especially in those positions, it's about integrity and honesty and just and facts. Uh,
Yeah. And I
I
do
think
think that a law needs to be universal, that one side shouldn't have all the information and choose to get the information over the other side. It should
Right.
be an open file. Everybody looks at the exact same thing, sees all the same things. It's all tagged. Everybody knows what everybody's looking at. So there's no
Right.
question whatsoever that human error or human ego or anything like that can get involved with somebody's freedom. And
That's right.
there's no reason why that shouldn't be part of our justice system. There just isn't a reason, because everything can be tagged, everything can be copied, everything can be done so that everybody looks at the exact same thing. And if that would have happened in this case, you could reverse 11 years of your life back, because it would have never have gone to conviction,
That's right.
because they wouldn't have had the ability to do what they did at the trial.
That's right.
So
And
Dwayne, what's it been like being back? You know, you've been back out for a few weeks since the end of June. What's life been like for you?
Crazy. It's been
Crazy.
crazy, but fun. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's been crazy, fun, and hard.
Yeah.
Uh, you think that when you get out of prison, like I remember I would have Zoom meetings with like Ken Nixon and people
Mm-hmm.
from the organization of exonerees, because
Yeah.
they would, like, if I started like panicking because it was taking too long, and they'll have me meet with them, and they'll tell me that, hey, just trust the process, everything is working. But
And Ken's a cool cat.
yeah, I like Ken. That's my man.
He's
Uh,
another Nightmare Success. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of his episode, but listeners out there, go check out Ken Nixon's episode too. And he does great work.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
very passionate about the exoneree program, as is Daryl Woods, as is Marvin Cotton Jr., who've all been on the show. And it's interesting too, because a lot of this is happening in Michigan. There's a lot of movement in Michigan to try to get to do the right thing, but a lot of that happens from the grassroots movement of these guys that don't just come back. They become part of the movement to make sure that people like you, Dwayne, can get to the resources that you need to
that's
be
right.
heard. And you know, what would
Yeah,
have happened if you hadn't had Cooley and the integrity unit and all those different people that came into your world that believed in you, believed in your case, and took it to the right people so that you could be heard. Um, it's so crazy to think that you went through all this. For everybody that's listening, I always ask people this question. I'm curious what your answer is. What do you think is your biggest takeaway through all this that you've been through?
hmm. Well, I think the common answer would be appreciate everything. You know,
Mm,
I sometimes not see, here I go again. Sometimes now sometimes I walk down the street, and I'm just walking, and I just think like, whoa, I'm looking at buildings and trees and birds, and I'm free.
yeah.
I wasn't. They said I'd never be free, and I'm free. The other day, well, yesterday, I was walking. We got a river walk here in Detroit, and I was walking around down the river walk, and I stopped and just thought like, I don't know, but
No,
yeah,
I get it, Dwayne. I mean, I would be, I'd be a mess. I mean, and I can, and your vulnerability and your humbleness of how you have handled this, I think everybody can feel that out there. Your gratitude of all of a sudden living freedom again has to be overwhelming. I can't imagine. I would be a crying mess every day that I woke up. I can't believe I'm here. And I say that because I just have a small sprinkle of you. I had 3 years in prison, and I hope it never leaves me, because
right,
that gratitude of being back in the world, and I say this a lot, there's moments and times that don't really mean the same things that they mean to a lot of people, but I will sit and think, I'm just glad I'm here.
that's right, that's
The
right,
family got together today, we had a barbecue, and there were times that I wasn't there. So
yeah, yeah,
you whatever that is, Dwayne, I feel that. I feel what you're feeling. You're
right,
walking around thinking, because when you go in, you can feel it shedding off your skin, that freedom, you know, and when you get it back, it's like your life goes into color. You know, you go from
Okay.
black and white to color, and you're experiencing that right now, and you're experiencing it in real time. I mean,
Yeah.
you're just, you know, a few weeks away from being locked up, and I can't imagine. But man, I'm glad that you had, and I think one of the real moments in your story is that you took the responsibility, the accountability on yourself and said, I'm going to do this. I'm
Yeah.
not going to have this guy or that guy in here do this. I'm going to, I'm smart. I can read, I can write. I'm going to get after this. And you did. And man, that's why you're walking and looking at the buildings and the trees,
That's right.
because you did it. And that's
That's right.
resilience, man. That's full on resilience.
Well, I
And
thank you. And I thank you for having me on and giving me a chance to tell my story. And I want to say too that can integrity, honesty. The problem here in Wayne County and in Detroit is that just get rid of the bad apples.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? I'm not against
yeah,
police. Daryl Woods is the police commissioner. I'm a
yeah,
policeman.
right.
Don't after all that happened to me. I'm not against police, but you got to get rid of the bad police, the
Yeah,
bad prosecutors, and I want to say too that when you talked about when you talked about all of those organizations that helped me what I was in, I just want to emphasize how much help the organization of Exonerees has been since I'm
yeah,
out. Because you see,
yeah.
I'm an emotional wreck, and
Yeah, no, and
they
that's a real
they've
community,
done a lot.
Dwayne.
They've done
Yeah,
a lot. So
yeah, and and I'm sure you'll become part of that and an impactful voice of that also. And that's what's so cool about you guys in Michigan, man. You guys are Detroit strong.
and then the last thing I want to say, that's right. And the last thing I want to say too is, I just want to mention the organization that I work for now,
Okay.
Firefly Advocates. It's a new innocence organization, and the gentleman who runs it, and the lady who, well, the gentleman and the lady who run it, Doris Houchins and Shia Baum, they got into it from just simply sitting in a courtroom and watching people who were about to lose their jobs because they couldn't pay fines, and he started paying fines. And from there, it has morphed into an innocence organization where he provides lawyers for people if we think you, because I worked there now, so I can
Yeah,
say if I get your letter and we think you innocent, then we'll be there to see you for sure. So
man.
I gotta mention them because they're incredible, because you don't find people who use their own money. He's using his own money. You don't find people who care enough about strangers and do things like that. So that
Dwayne, I
always,
love that. And that's where you're at now.
yep, Firefly
Oh man, I
Advocate.
love that. That's a great way to end it too. For people out there, I've talked about being grateful. I get to use this podcast room with Homestead Financial with all this fancy equipment. I so much appreciate that. If you need home mortgage needs, Greg Afdiev is your guy. If you're looking for a book out there, I've got one. It's on Nightmare Success, called Nightmare Success, on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. If you got time, please leave me a review. Those are great things for the show. Just go to Apple and it says write a review, and there it is. I just got a brand new website. Check it out. It's brentcassidy.com. I spell it wrong. TY, not a DY. And as I used to say when I was writing my emails back and forth from Leavenworth, stay strong. I'll do the same. Duane Williams, all the best to you, man. All the best to you. I know you're going to go out and do some great things.
Hey, I appreciate it, man, and you keep this platform, keep doing what you're doing, and know that not just I appreciate you, we all do.
I appreciate that, Dwayne. Nightmare Success, in and out.